Picture this. It's a Sunday afternoon and you're sitting in your car in the parking lot of a grocery store. And before you go inside, you do that thing you probably do more than you'd like to admit. You open your banking app just to check. Not because something is wrong necessarily, but just to feel the weight of the number. And you stare at it. You do the mental math. Rent is coming out in 11 days, there's that insurance renewal you forgot about, and somehow, even though you worked every single day this week, the balance doesn't look the way it should. Now here's the part that really gets under your skin. You drive home, and parked right in front of your neighbor's house, the one who always seems to be complaining that things are too expensive, that the economy is brutal, that money is tight, is a brand new pickup truck. Gleaming in the afternoon lights. Massive, the kind of vehicle that costs more than some people's first homes. And you sit there thinking the same thought that millions of people think every single day. How in the world is he affording that? Welcome to Smart Invests, and I spend way too much time thinking about money, financial psychology, and how people build wealth. If you're someone who struggles with understanding where your money actually goes each month and why it never seems to be enough, make sure to hit the subscribe button and give this video a thumbs up if this helps you out. Because what I'm about to walk you through isn't just about car payments, it's about a system, a very deliberately constructed financial system that most people never see until they're already inside it. Here's the belief most people hold without ever questioning it. If someone can afford the monthly payment, they can afford the thing. That idea sounds reasonable on the surface. It has a certain logical shape to it. But it is one of the most quietly destructive financial assumptions that exists in modern consumer culture. And the entire automotive financing industry is built on the fact that most people will never stop to challenge it. The average new vehicle payment in America has now crossed $700 per month. Not for luxury cars, not for exotic imports. That is the average for ordinary people buying ordinary vehicles. For trucks and SUVs, which have become the default choice for a large portion of buyers, payments routinely sit above $900, and it's common to see loan obligations exceeding $1,200 per month, stretching 6, 7, sometimes 8 years into the future. And yet, somehow, millions of people are signing those documents every single month and driving off the lot feeling like they made a smart decision. The reason they feel that way is not an accident. The concept I want to introduce here is what I call the monthly payment illusion. And it works like this. Human psychology is not wired to evaluate large numbers well. When you're shown a $55,000 truck, your brain has a very hard time emotionally processing what $55,000 actually means in the context of your life. But if you break it down to $800 per month, well, $800 per month feels manageable. It fits in your mental budget alongside rent and groceries and your streaming subscriptions. It becomes a line item, not a life decision. And that framing shift is worth hundreds of thousands of dollars to the automotive industry. What's almost never discussed in that dealership conversation is what that $800 per month actually represents when you follow the math all the way to the end. Think of it like this. Imagine you're filling a bathtub and there's a slow drain at the bottom. You keep turning the faucet higher to try to keep the water level up, but the drain is always pulling it down. Extended loan terms are the drain. Every time you stretch a payment over more years to lower the monthly number, you're widening that drain, and you end up using far more water than you ever needed just to maintain the same water level. You feel like you're gaining something, that lower monthly obligation, but the total water used is much, much greater. That's exactly what happens when a $55,000 loan at 6% interest is stretched over 7 years instead of 4. On a 4-year term, you'd pay somewhere around $12,000 in interest. Stretch it to 7 years, and that number climbs toward $22,000. You've paid an extra $10,000 simply for the privilege of a lower monthly number. And while all of that is happening, the vehicle itself is dropping in value at a rate that almost no other asset class can match. By year 3, a vehicle that cost $55,000 might be worth $32,000. By year 5, perhaps $22,000. But the loan balance doesn't fall at the same rate.
which means somewhere in the middle of that loan term, you owe significantly more on the vehicle than you could ever sell it for. That is called being upside down. And once you are upside down, you are no longer the owner of that truck in any meaningful financial sense. The truck owns you. Here's what most people don't realize. The automotive industry is not primarily in the business of selling transportation. It's in the business of selling identity. The commercials are not designed to make you think rationally about horsepower to payload ratios. They're designed to make you feel something. They show you footage of a truck climbing a mountain at sunrise or a family laughing on a beach with the tailgate down, and they're selling you a version of yourself. The capable, successful, adventurous, hard-working version, and the payment is the price of admission to that identity. This is where it gets really interesting from a psychological standpoint. When a purchase becomes tied to identity, it becomes almost immune to rational analysis. Suggesting to someone that they could save $600 per month by driving a reliable used vehicle doesn't register as financial advice, it registers as a personal insult. It sounds like you're telling them they don't deserve the thing they chose, that they made a mistake, that they should settle. And almost nobody responds well to that framing, which is why so many people will defend a payment that is objectively damaging their financial future with the same energy they defend a family member. The dealership understands this better than most therapists. The entire sales process is engineered to move you through the emotional stages of wanting, justifying, and committing before you ever sit down to look at the actual numbers. And by the time the finance manager is presenting you with an 8-year loan option, you're already mentally living in that truck. The decision emotionally has already been made. Let's actually run the numbers the way most people never do. Take someone who purchases a $55,000 truck with a 7-year loan at 6% interest. Their monthly payment works out to approximately $800. Already, that feels like a real commitment, but let's follow that number all the way through. Over 7 years, they'll pay roughly $67,000 on the loan itself. Insurance on a truck that value, with comprehensive coverage and gap insurance, will run around $250 per month. That's an additional $21,000 over the loan term. Fuel for a vehicle averaging 16 miles per gallon, driven a typical American commute, will cost roughly $350 per month, which is another $29,000 over 7 years. Maintenance, tires, and the inevitable repair that hits somewhere around year 4 or 5 adds conservatively another $15,000. Add those figures together, and you're looking at approximately $132,000 spent on transportation over 7 years, after which the vehicle you own is worth, if you maintained it well, somewhere between $12,000 and $18,000. That means you've spent $132,000 to end up with a $15,000 asset. That is not a purchase. That is a 7-year transaction in the direction of financial loss. Now consider what happens to that same $800 per month if it's invested instead. At an 8% average annual return in a broad index fund, $800 per month over 7 years grows to somewhere around $90,000. Not only have you avoided the debt, the depreciation, the insurance burden, and the opportunity cost, you've actually built a meaningful sum of money. The truck driver and the investor both spent 7 years. One of them now has a truck worth $15,000. The other has $90,000 in assets and no debt. The most important shift I want you to consider isn't actually about the vehicle at all. It's about what kind of financial person you're becoming through the choices you make right now. The trap of the monthly payment illusion is that it keeps people focused on the present, on what they can feel and touch and show, at the expense of who they're becoming over time. Every time you choose the payment that fits over the decision that builds, you're reinforcing a pattern of present-oriented thinking that makes it harder and harder to build lasting financial security.
The people who consistently build real wealth aren't necessarily the highest earners in the room. They're usually the people who made peace at some earlier point in their lives with the idea that they didn't need to signal success. They drove unremarkable vehicles. They lived in ordinary homes. And quietly, consistently, they accumulated assets while everyone around them was accumulating monthly obligations. Here's the thing about having money that nobody tells you until you experience it. It changes the quality of every decision you make. When you don't have financial slack, when every dollar is already spoken for by a payment on something you bought, fear drives your decisions. You can't leave a bad job because you can't miss a paycheck. You can't take a risk on a business idea because you have no runway. You can't handle an unexpected expense without chaos because there's nothing in reserve. But when your monthly obligations are low and your savings are building, the emotional texture of your life changes. Opportunities feel possible rather than threatening. Problems feel solvable rather than catastrophic. That's not a small thing. That's the actual experience of financial freedom. And it doesn't require $1 million, it requires a low enough cost of living that you have options. Now, you might be thinking, I need a reliable vehicle, I can't drive some 15-year-old rust bucket to work every morning, and that's a completely fair concern. Nobody is suggesting that responsible transportation isn't important. The argument isn't don't buy a car, the argument is understand what you're actually buying. A 3-year-old vehicle with 35,000 miles purchased for cash or with a short loan at a reasonable amount will get you to work just as effectively as a brand new $55,000 truck. It won't have the chrome package, it won't turn heads at the traffic light, but it also won't be quietly extracting $1,500 per month from your financial future when you add up every associated cost. So what do you actually do with this? First, before you ever walk into a dealership again, calculate your full transportation budget. Not just the monthly payment, but insurance, fuel, maintenance, and the total cost of the loan. That number is your real commitment. Second, look seriously at the used vehicle market for cars that are 2 to 4 years old. The original buyer absorbed the steepest portion of the depreciation curve, and you get a reliable vehicle at a significantly lower cost. Third, if you're currently in a situation where you're upside down on a vehicle loan, don't make it worse by rolling that negative equity into a new loan. That's how people end up paying for 3 cars while driving 1. Fourth, consider the opportunity cost explicitly. Whatever you're spending on transportation above a reasonable baseline, run the math on what that would become if invested over 10 years. Make the comparison real and concrete. And fifth, understand that driving something modest is not a statement about your worth as a person. It's a statement about your priorities. And the person who drives a $12,000 used car while building a $200,000 investment portfolio is winning by every measure that actually matters. The version of you that exists 10 years from now is being shaped by the financial decisions you're making right now. Not the dramatic ones, not the big swings, but the quiet, recurring monthly commitments that compound in one direction or the other over time. The car payment trap isn't really about cars. It's about whether you're building a life where money works for you or a life where you work endlessly to service the things you bought. That distinction, made consistently over a decade, is the difference between financial stress and financial freedom. If this video shifted how you're thinking about transportation or any other large recurring expense, subscribe to Smart Invests. We put out content exactly like this every week. And if you want to go deeper on the psychology of how spending decisions actually work, the next video is already waiting for you.